And I'm not on the Mikel Arteta out bandwagon at all. Maybe they go on and win the Premier League, Ollie. But I did...
Sounds like you might be, to be honest.
I did wonder.
Look at the way that Gueye and Eze are going about their business. Still playing their hearts out for Crystal Palace. Look, I'd like a move, please. I'm still going to go and do what I need to do for this football club right now. Alexander Isak is just tarnishing his reputation completely.
I mean, they just love sport. They just love sports, Saudi. Hello and welcome along to Not Another Sports Pod, episode number 55 with myself, David, and Mr. Oliver Wilson on the pod this week. It's an early morning pod, by the way, 8 a.m. sharp on Monday morning. The Premier League is back. I want to talk about Manchester City looking good. Is Graham Potter in trouble already? And another VAR mess to pick apart. I don't know if you've seen the free kick from Eberici Eze for Crystal Palace against Chelsea. Absolutely fascinating. Lots more to talk about in the world of sport. Of course, Mr. Wilson, but Ollie is back with the good microphone. So last week's experiment, Ollie, it was a one-time thing.
Yeah, the wireless mic is good for your off-piste, on the road, outdoors. It does the job you need with decent quality. But we're back with the good stuff now, Windsor. It's the RE20 or nothing.
And Ollie warned me that he's got to be off by 9. Ollie, is that a tea time you got to catch, or what's going on? Because I know Monday's often the sort of day of rest for the nomadic football commentator.
This is part of a society that is filled with people in film and television. So I'd rather not think of it as a tea time and a competition that's got to be got to. This is very much a business meeting out on the golf course.
Said he to the tax man. Right.
Very much.
Let's talk Premier League. Ollie, I want to talk about Graham Potter and West Ham United first of all, because I was talking to some West Ham fans over the weekend. Now, I haven't followed Graham Potter's career that closely, but about a year ago, I saw him on Monday Night Football. And you know when they get someone on Monday Night Football, for anyone that hasn't watched it, there's like a deep dive, and the guest on Monday Night Football with Jamie Carragher is given a platform and an opportunity to talk tactics and really demonstrate their vision of the sport to the viewing public. It's a shop window, essentially, for a lot of potential work in media and in coaching. Graham Potter was on Monday Night Football about a year ago, and I remember thinking, with no knowledge of how good Graham Potter is as a coach, this is not a charismatic man. And that really, really stuck with me because he was so bad on Monday Night Football. There was no charisma there at all. I wouldn't follow him into any kind of situation. He didn't feel like a leader of men to me. And if you speak to West Ham fans, I mean, they want him gone already. West Ham had a bad result on the opening weekend of the season. Look, Ollie, it's one game. There's 37 games left. But losing 3-0 to a newly promoted side on the opening day is a bad one, especially if, as a manager and as a club, you didn't do well last season. So my tip for first managerial casualty of the Premier League season 25-26 is Graham Potter.
Yeah, I mean, you already stressed that one last week, didn't you? That was your Graham Potter and West Ham are going to end up struggling. And the trouble for Potter is that he does have his feet under the table already, and he's had opportunities at West Ham to try and start moulding, cultivating how he would kind of want to. 20 games, 20 points isn't an ideal reading at all in terms of getting back what you put in. I feel sorry for him a little bit, just because opening day of the season, going to the Stadium of Light with Sunderland back in the Premier League for the first time in over a decade is probably one of the most difficult places to go this weekend. There are two games that being an away manager at would be tough this weekend that perhaps later on in the season wouldn't have that same sort of aura. And that's being at Sunderland on Saturday and being at Ellen Road tonight under the lights. Because as I've said previously, there's something about Ellen Road under the lights that just does give this really great, intense atmosphere. And it'd be interesting to see what happens on Monday Night Football. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we're necessarily surprised, to be honest. Potter did a very good job with Brighton, but it wasn't a spectacular job now when we look at what Brighton have kind of gone on to do in terms of being in European football and deserving.
That's held his reputation together, Ollie, until now, what he did at Brighton.
Yeah, very much so. And it deserved to be, because at that time we were looking at Brighton as each season, just stay in the Premier League. And, a reasonable return in terms of points. I've just had a look this morning, and it's, 1.28 points per game, which is going to be enough to keep you up. That's fine. That's what Brighton fans at that point expected. But somebody else has come in and taken Brighton onto bigger and better things. And Potter went to Chelsea and clearly didn't cut the mustard, being in charge of a club of that big of that level. And then it's not great reading so far at West Ham. It's going to be tough. And if the fan base is already on his back, that makes it a nightmare for him to suddenly have to deal with that as well. Because let's face it, West Ham fans aren't exactly renowned for being a calm, level-headed bunch when it comes to how they view
they
their
wanted
football
Moyes gone, mate.
Yeah.
The man who delivered European silverware.
And I said when that happened, it was like, look, I get you want David Moyes gone, but at the same time, you better be careful for the devil that you ask for and bring up, because it's so difficult to go higher than winning a Conference League. And if you expect that as a West Ham fan, there's a naivety in that because you're not a top 6 club at this point. So,
Ollie, I can hear you through the Zoom, by the way, not your mic. Just I know it's fine. Let's talk about other Premier League results then and incidents, Ollie. I want to talk about Man United nil Arsenal 1 actually quickly, because I don't know whether you saw any of this, Ollie, but Man United had lots of chances and probably should have taken at least a point from it. And there's a moment towards the end of the game which I fear for Arsenal fans could be emblematic of Mikel Arteta's reign. Now, the board goes up and there's 6 minutes left, right, at Old Trafford. 6 minutes left, Arsenal 1-0 up. And Odegaard, right at that moment, takes the ball to the corner flag. Now, I know you're away at Old Trafford. I know that is historically one of the flagship fixtures in Premier League football, right? But even so, mate, if you're Arsenal and you want to win the league, the statement from Odegaard to bring the ball towards the corner flag with still 6 minutes left of the football match to be played, for me, just didn't scream we're a side that is going to win the Premier League this season. We're going to outscore you. Now, I looked at that Arsenal side at the starting lineup and I thought, wow, that is a really good 11. I mean, the defence is the best defence in the Premier League by a mile. You brought in Zubimendi to free up Declan Rice. Zubimendi, a player wanted by Liverpool and Real Madrid. Gyökeres didn't play well yesterday. Maybe he's great, maybe he's not. But you have bought a number 9. And I did just wonder what another coach could do with that group of players. And I'm not on the Mikel Arteta out bandwagon at all. Maybe they go on and win the Premier League, Ollie. But I did...
Sounds like you might be, to be honest.
I did wonder. I just thought... I don't know if City are doing that at 1-0 up on the opening weekend of the Premier League season. I don't know if Liverpool are doing that. And it struck me as odd that you've got a fantastic footballer like Martin Odegaard going to the corner flag at 1-0 up with still 6 minutes to go.
I don't know. I think you need to be a little kinder on this. I mean, you 1-0 up on the road, first day of the season. All you want to do is come away with a win. I think most or a lot of clubs would do that. I think maybe a City wouldn't because they play a different style of football. It's all about that possession brand and they've mastered it. Whereas I wouldn't necessarily say Arsenal, the possession side, have mastered it with that same level of confidence. And that's fine. And you have to play to your strengths as well at this point. Like, there's no point in being cavalier and sending extra men forward or like just sometimes it's smart to just keep things simple, particularly on the opening day of the season. I don't believe that this Manchester United-Arsenal game as a fixture anymore has that spark. I'm sorry, but it's just not. I know we saw a little bit of tenacity on the field on the weekend, but it isn't the same. It never will be the same. We all think it should have that spark because we all lived through the greatest period of an English football rivalry that we'll probably ever see. Like, I don't think there will be another rivalry like Manchester United against Arsenal in the Vieira-Keane era. It just isn't going to happen.
Each other. Hated each other.
Every footballer now is too friendly, pally, because much like Instagrammers, they've realised that collaboration is key, right? So if they can collaborate and be friends, that's what they're going to do. There's never going to be another staring down the tunnel, not even daring to look at the opposition in the eye. And that is so iconic and such a good moment that is forever now lost in the football that we kind of live in now between Keane and Vieira. So it actually isn't as big a fixture on the opening day of the season as it was played out to be. And Arsenal just going to the corner flag. You know, if this was back in the day, maybe you'd have seen, you know, Wenger's Arsenal, like not only just try and take it to United a bit more and humiliate them on home soil, but also try and kick the living bejesus out of them for the last 6 minutes as well. You know, those days are well and truly done and dusted. So I don't think you can encapsulate Mikel Arteta in one moment, Martin Odegaard taking it down to the corner flag at all. I think that's a very harsh betrayal, to be honest. See that moment of about 20 seconds? That's Arsenal all over right there. Well, they've won, but that is Arsenal all over, and that's why you'll never be
But
great.
isn't that the point of football punditry and journalism these days, Ollie? You take one microscopic moment and you extrapolate it to the most divisive take you possibly can. Isn't that the Roy Jennings playbook?
And that's why you're the host, and I'm here to bring everything just down to a slightly level playing field.
Just to soften what I'm saying about Arsenal slightly. I mean, I've said it on the pod before. Look, it's a fantastic side, and I think Arteta's a really, really good coach. But Jamie Carragher made the point the other day, I think on Friday night, or was it the overlap, where he said that it always used to be the best defence wins the league, right? But now it's kind of like the side that scores the most goals wins the league. You know, in the 90s and then maybe the noughties with Mourinho, he brought in that, the rock-solid defence wins the league. And maybe it's just shifted a little bit. I don't know. Maybe Arsenal go on and win the league. It's a top starting 11 for Arsenal. And I tell you what, if Gyökeres is a good player, then I do think they'll win the league. I think it really could rest on him.
That's the trend in modern day sports in general. Like, defensive football isn't fun, whether you're talking about American football or soccer. People want to see tries in rugby. They don't want to see a ground out kind of ground and pound taking place. They want to see knockouts in the first round rather than a 12-round tactical brawl of the heavyweights. It's as we continue to be more Instagram, click, we want to see goals. Like, when was the last time that you saw a club account put up what a superb tackle from somebody, as opposed to look at this shot that almost went in and strikes the outside of the upright or something like that. So it's about the action. The rules are changed, and the rules of the game have been dictated slightly to encourage more action. To fast-paced players get touched by a feather, they're going down. It's a free kick. It's another opportunity from a set piece to score a goal. Everything is designed around increasing the action for the fan, for those dopamine hits, for the eyes and the attention.
That's a good thing.
It is. It's good to some extent. I mean, it depends. I love a defensive masterclass though. And you have to respect a defensive masterclass as well. That's why I thought Burnley, and we might touch on them because that was a humbling back to the Premier League. But so I thought Burnley last year in the Championship was actually something really special. It was incredibly special. The number of clean sheets they had, the goals conceded, and nobody could really blame them for going about the way they did because they didn't have a great striker in their ranks. So, okay, we'll just make it impossible for you to score against us. And if we do that, we're going to end up getting promoted. And that's exactly what they did. And you have to admire that because that's the other... Football's 50% of the game. Scoring goals is one thing, but keeping goals out is the other thing. And if you can do one of those, great. Then you'll be in a great chance of winning every single game. And it doesn't have to be scoring, goals.
Other talking points from the Premier League this weekend. So Chelsea 0, Crystal Palace 0. There's only really one big moment from the game. Now, Crystal Palace have a free kick just outside the area. And Eberechi Eze, probably playing his last game for Crystal Palace, smashes it past Sanchez into the back of the net. Maybe goalkeeper should save it, but he smashed it into the back of the net. It's a great free kick. That's the moment. I was actually covering this game for TalkSport International, Ollie, and I went crazy because it's like, oh, Eze scored. Everyone was saying he's going to Tottenham in the next couple of days. That was the moment, right? And then, so you go wild on that for 60 seconds. And then all of a sudden, VAR pops up, and you have that initial there's confusion because you can't call it straight away. You don't know what's going on. The VAR just pops up on the screen. It's like something's gone wrong here. And immediately I'm thinking, right, there's a foul in the wall maybe, because why else would a free kick goal be disallowed? Eventually, what had happened is Mark Gay was a couple of meters away from the wall. And Mark Gay, the Palace captain, is in a wrestling match with someone, and he kind of moves towards the Chelsea wall. And within that motion, he moves within 1 meter of the Chelsea wall. And that is you can't do that. That's against the rules. And so that is why the free kick was chalked off, because Mark Gay had moved within 1 meter of the Chelsea wall when the free kick was struck. I mean, I don't think I've seen that. I don't think I've seen that before. I really don't.
We've seen footballers line up almost in the wall.
Yeah.
So for it to be penalised now, I think the difference is that Mark Gay's basically had a pushing match and a rugby tackle into the Chelsea
given for
wall.
that. That's what I thought at first, Ollie. I was like, it's the foul.
Yeah, and that was really interesting because, firstly, this is the first time I think a lot of people have ever heard of this. It's, somebody up at Stockley was like, call it for this. Don't call it for the pushing and shoving. Call it for this because our new referees announcing the foul in stadium is going to look the nuts on the opening day of the season right here. We are going to look like geniuses for miking up refs and having them read out, like the Americans have in their sports, to the stadium, to the sports, exactly why this free kick has been given. Because, even Match of the Day too, or Match of the Day, I can't remember which it was now. Match of the Day 2, wasn't it? No, it was Match of the Day. We're saying, we don't remember... Never seen this call before. Never seen this obscure...
Match of the Day 2 must have been Sunday night, yeah.
Yeah. Back section of the rule book. Okay, all right. We'll see. And it is great. It's great that we had, the official explanation from the official. The difference is, it's nobody really knew this. And you could have just given it for Mark Gay having a wrestling match in the Chelsea wall. That would have been the more logical thing.
And that would have been almost legitimate, because as you say, there is... You see it and you think, oh, well, he does sort of have a bit of his shirt and maybe...
It's not sort of. I mean, he's literally shoulder barging the guy out the way in...
So I first of all called it as a goal, incorrect. Then I called it as Gay's foul, incorrect. And then eventually when the referee comes over the tannoy, from live comms, I'm like, okay. I just let that play out because I was just like, right, I don't really get what's going on. Then Anyway, that was an interesting moment. Elsewhere on Saturday, Ollie... you wanted to talk about Burnley. Look, we sort of slagged off Tottenham last pod, and I don't think a 3-0 victory over Burnley is going to define their season. But I would say Kudos is a good signing, and if they get Ezra as well, those are 2 really good signings for Tottenham.
I think that's a huge win and manner of victory, though, to bounce back after what happened in midweek in the Super Cup. Because we looked at a Tottenham side 2-0 up with 10 minutes to go, throw away a lead, 2-0 up in a penalty shootout, throw away a lead against PSG. I mean, they Tottenhamed it twice in one game to lose the Super Cup, unfortunately, on penalties for them. And everybody went, Thomas Frank's a great manager, but you can't take the Tottenham out of Tottenham. And so to have that response on the opening day of the Premier League season against a Burnley side that, as I say, were ridiculously tough to break down last year. Obviously, there have been changes. It's going to be a completely different level for Scott Parker's team in this Premier League season. They're going to have to get better at finding goals, and they're going to have to be more disciplined defensively. But to come out and I'm not a huge Richarlison fan. I don't think he's ever shown an amazing attitude. I don't really see him as a proper out-and-out number 9. He's not my finishing man, so to speak. But I tell you what, 2 fantastic finishes on the weekend. Obviously, the scissor kick, but the one before that as well was almost as good in terms of the ability to manipulate his body into a position to be able to get a clean strike on that.
I loved him at Everton, Ollie. I loved him. I thought he was fantastic at Everton, but I agree with you. Since then, is he a sensitive lad? Is he in his head too much? When you watch him play, it always feels like he's overthinking football and life.
His ability to lose his head inside the first 15 minutes of a game is only matched by his inability to get it back for the remaining 75. And once his head goes, the whole game is lost. But when he stays locked in and focused, and we've just not seen that enough at Tottenham for me, for where they want to be, I think personally they need a better mental character and probably a better finisher in general. But 2 goals on the opening day of the season and a very easy win was a great way to bounce back after what we saw against PSG.
Aston Villa 0, Newcastle 0, Ollie. The Newcastle United fans are angry. That's an angry fan base right now. And you know what? I get it. I totally get it. They drew 0-0. If Isak plays, they probably win that game. He's on a long contract. They bought Isak. They've invested time in him. They've coached him. They paid him a good wage. And what he's done is, look, it's pretty gross, man. I get it. It's football. Players have done it before. Alexander Isak. Players will do it after Alexander Isak. Going on strike, refusing to play, engineering a move. But it's not great, mate, is it?
Well, what did I say last week? Is that we've had no real official word of Isak refusing to play for the club or anything like that. 3 hours after we finished recording, that message comes out from Isak's people on last Monday of, I'm not training, I'm not doing it. And I said last week that it's been great that he hasn't done this whole down tools demanding a move. Look at the way that Gueye and Eze are going about their business, still playing their hearts out for Crystal Palace. Look, I'd like a move, please. I'd like a transfer. I know somebody's interested. I'd like to get this done. Great. But I'm still contracted. I'm still going to go and do what I need to do for this football club right now. Alexander Isak is just tarnishing his reputation completely. And don't get me wrong, I found it a bit kind of, we've got Alan Shearer on Match of the Day on Saturday night, and he's saying, it's terrible for the club. And obviously has a massive emotional investment in Newcastle United, which is why I don't actually think he should be making those sorts of statements, because he's so closely linked to the club.
Isn't that a good thing, sorry, Ollie? Because that he's reflective of the fan base. He can be the voice of that fan base then.
But you don't need that fan base's voice to be reflected when it's clearly a terrible thing anyway. And I'd rather an outsider said it, because if you're taking away the emotion and somebody who's not connected to the club says, no, that is actually terrible what he's doing, rather than we hear so much about, oh, we need to give the players more power because owners are the devil. They've got all the money. The players are getting, only a portion of what the owners get, etc. And actually it's like, well, no, there are definitely cases in this world where players trying to force their way through, demand things. Obviously, we go back to the famous Cristiano Ronaldo, like slave trade comments about being a professional footballer and stuff. And it's like, it's just not, guys. Like, you really are playing a game that people play for fun and getting paid a lot of money to do it. And I get you want your move and you want to get it across the line, but there's a way to go about it without looking like an absolute pillock. And unfortunately, Alexander Isak doing what he's doing, it's disrespectful to the football club. It's a disservice to himself. It's a disrespect to the fans that have supported him and kind of, you do when you've got an affinity to a club and somebody plays phenomenally for you for a couple of seasons, you have that like desire to see them do well. And he could have left in such a better manner than this at Newcastle. And he's made me look like an idiot for last week. And that really is the biggest takeaway that we need to have from this.
I think you make a very good point with the Mark Gay and Eberechi Eze situation. It's not a direct parallel, but listen, Gay's in the last year of his contract, so he's actually in a way more powerful position than Alexander Isak. I mean, he really could say, I ain't playing, and they'd have to sell him because otherwise, like, he's gone, right? He's in the last year. So he's actually in a very powerful position, but he hasn't said anything. He's still turning up. He's captaining Crystal Palace, and presumably his mentality and the mentality of his agent is, if we don't get the move now, we'll get it in January. If we don't get it in January, we'll get it next summer, but I'm a Palace player and I'm going to give it my all. And as I say, I've covered the Chelsea Palace game yesterday. I mean, Eze, he left everything on the line for the man, and he's a similar one. Like, if Tottenham come in and can pay the money, great. If not, I guess he just waits it out till next summer and has another good season with Palace in the Conference League and maybe goes to the World Cup, does something there, then more clubs are in for him, maybe Arsenal are in for him then. So, yeah, there's definitely a way of doing things. Isak, I mean, he just doesn't have the power in this situation. He's 3 years left in his contract. If he waits one more year, I think he does have the power. That's where the seesaw swings in his favour. So it's a really odd one.
And the frustrating thing is as well is that we hear all of these players saying, no, I'm holding out because I want a longer deal, I want my security. And it's like, cool, if you want the longer deal and you want that security, you have to accept the fact that you might have to play for the full length of that deal. Like, you can't have your cake and eat it as well. Either clubs are going to give you short-term deals because they think you might want to jump ship or something like that, and then you haven't got the security that you want if it doesn't go well for you.
100%.
Or you take a 5-year contract and you'd be willing to at least see out 4.5 of those years. Like, it's just the way it's got to be, unfortunately. Like, the money's there because football's a business. And if you're running a business, you expect people to adhere to the contracts that you bring them in to sign. And if not, things will change and it won't be for the better for yourself. So,
one thing I haven't heard that I would like to hear of more during this situation is like a lawyer's perspective of this. Because, as you say, there is an employment contract there, which has very set perimeters of what you can and cannot do. So, with Isak, for example, Ollie, let me ask you now, do you think Newcastle United is still paying his weekly wage?
I imagine so, yeah, definitely.
But how can they? Because he's broken employment law, surely.
Well, you would have thought that like downing tools means. I think the difference is that Alexander Isak is so important. If this move doesn't go through by the end of the window, if Alexander Isak then is still a Newcastle United player, Alexander Isak potentially coming back and playing still might be so important for them in terms of what happens to them this season. So you can't then refuse to pay him and create such a negative situation that then he says, well, if we don't get this deal through, I'm not playing at all. You can go stuff yourself. And then it's put Newcastle in an absolutely rotten position because like the cuckold husband, they have to do what Isak wants eventually. And it kind of is that way. Like,
hearing Eddie Howe talk, man, is so painful because it's like, that's not what you think, Eddie Howe. It's all so soft and we'll try and reintegrate him. Just a couple of points more on Isak and Newcastle, Ollie. First of all, I was listening to Alan Pardew on TalkSport last night, and Alan Pardew said something interesting. Now, Alan Pardew might not know everything about the Alexander Isak situation, but he was a former Newcastle United manager, and I imagine he still has contacts at the football club. And he said it's not happening this summer. And he said there'll be an agreement between Newcastle and Isak that he can leave in either January or next summer. And he was quite strong on that point, which made me think, look, what does Alan Pardew know about the Saudis and the ownership and Eddie Howe and Isak's in a circle? I don't know. But the way he spoke, Ollie, made me think he knows something that a few people don't, because he said it doesn't happen this summer. There'll be an agreement for it to happen in January or next summer. And I thought that was interesting. The other point is that on Monday, the 25th of August, Newcastle host Liverpool at St James's Park, right? Nothing's happening before then. Like, the deal won't get done before then because Newcastle won't let it happen. So if it doesn't happen before then you're sort of waking up on the 26th of August and there's, 4 or 5 days left of the transfer window. And then, I don't know if it does happen then, Liverpool are pretty strong in what they will and will not pay for a player. They're not just going to be like, okay, here's 150 million, go and then have it. That's not how the transfer committee works. And Newcastle are owned by the Saudis. So it just takes a couple of stubborn individuals for this deal not to happen.
Yeah, I think they learnt from the Andy Carroll fiasco many moons ago that late deadline day moves with huge figures around it just aren't the way forward at this point. So, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it doesn't go through. 100% Isak. That move could go before that Liverpool game, but it would be in the move that he wouldn't be allowed to play. Like, it'd be in the contract somewhere that he said. So I could still actually see that going through. But why the Liverpool? I'm not saying they don't have an out-and-out number 9 or anything like that. But at the same time, like, there's a lot of firepower in that Liverpool side. I mean,
Ekitike was great on Friday night. Yeah. You know, when you watch a footballer, and look, if Hugo Ekitike, if he's not a success in the Premier League, then I don't know anything about football. Because straight away, I just thought, take away the goal in the Community Shield and the goal on Friday night, I just thought, wow, proper player. Like the touches, the flicks, with Wirtz in behind him and Gakpo to one-hand side, and he kind of naturally drifts left anyway. I was like, yeah, I mean, you're a top Premier League player.
And obviously, Federico Chiesa has opened the floodgates now. Wasn't that great to see him score what eventually was basically the winner? I know Salah got the fourth and everything. And I felt sad for Bournemouth, because to come back from 2-0 down on opening night of the Premier League season at Anfield would have been unbelievable. And particularly for Semenyo to have scored both goals after the just like pieces of nasty scum going out and doing that. Like, you could just... And fair credit to the officials and to Semenyo for kind of like saying, we'll get the game going again and everything like that. And it was such an ugly way to raise the curtain on the Premier League season, of a 4-2 thriller at Anfield with a 2-0 comeback from the, I don't want to say upstarts, that's doing Bournemouth a disservice because it was a great season last year, but you wouldn't have expected them from 2-0 down to come back at Anfield and make a real fight of it. And then to have the late drama that we got. That should have been the storyline rather than some moron in the crowd. And we don't know if it's that chap who's in the wheelchair that the Twitter militants have kind of gone out and said it was definitely him. It hasn't been revealed yet, of course. But it just, in the words of Alan Partridge, scum, subhuman scum. People
just to echo that, Ollie, disgusting, disgraceful, unbelievable. Find who did it. You've got cameras, you've got audio all around that pitch. Find who did it and throw the law at them. I don't know. Yeah,
never let them inside a sporting event ever again. But as I say,
the minimum is a ban from any sporting arena your entire life. That's the absolute minimum, and then whatever
charges they want
of the judicial system, whatever.
But elated for Chiesa, because it's been such a rough time since joining Liverpool. It was always a bit of like a side-eye transfer anyway, that everyone thought, well, Chiesa's good because he'll get some money, like decent money out of this, but he's never going to be a first-team starter. It's proved to be the case. Injuries have still been there as well, so... Yeah, that was a nice moment for a player that I do really like.
And you know what, Ollie? He's never really been given... It's never like he started 3 games in a row or anything like that. And look, Arne Slot sees him every day in training, right? And chooses not to select him. So that is quite telling. But he's sort of played off the left, he's played off the right, he's put in the pocket. He was false 9 against Bournemouth for the last 20 minutes or whatever on Friday night. So he's sort of been moved around a little bit, never really given a proper go. And as I say, look, you can see him in training every week, so there's a reason he hasn't been given a proper go. But at the same time, comes on, as you say, scores what is effectively the winner. And who knows? Who knows what could happen? I mean, stranger things have happened than him turn his career around.
You replace Wirtz in the game as well, in terms of like, new boy hasn't got a clue, guys. I got this. Don't worry about it. It's a great story. It's a great story.
Right, just finally on the Premier League action, Manchester City beat Wolverhampton Wanderers 4-0 away from home. Yeah, one of those, Ollie, where we said it, I think, in the off-season, but the kind of quiet rebuild that Pep Guardiola's undergone at City could potentially be very impressive. And listen, it would also be, if he could do it, let's say City win the league this year, the first time in his career, really, that Guardiola's taken apart a side he's assembled and put it back together again and then and gone on to have success. I mean, don't recall him ever doing that before at any of his clubs. You know, Barcelona and Bayern, like he didn't do that before. So if he does it at City, then it's an impressive accomplishment.
Yeah, I need to just hold off on everybody giving Tiana Reinders the Kevin De Bruyne, who needs him kind of chat. Like, that's a phenomenal debut, obviously. And he looked the business in the Premier League. No waiting to get settled. I loved him at Milan. He was great last year. I think it was 16 goals he had in Serie A last season. And really was one of the best young players that I've seen coming out of San Siro, obviously. I think it was Ajax youth, like all great Dutch players are, obviously. And but I would just hold fire on what was a complete performance in terms of a team performance, which always helps any individual shine that little bit brighter if they have a couple of goals or a goal and assist like Tiani Reinders had. So let's just hold off. De Bruyne was an exceptional talent. Stepping into those shoes is a huge gap, huge void to fill for Manchester United over the course of a season. But couldn't have really been much better for a start of a campaign. There was the first 20 minutes or so where Wolves looked like they were going to give a bit of a scrap, bit of a fight to that game, and City took over. And once they got the first, it had been coming for a good 5-10 minutes of solid pressure, and then the floodgates opened up. They looked very, very good again. And, you know, I think we're going to see a real fight on our hands, hopefully, if the opening weekend's anything to go by, of Liverpool, City, and possibly a Chelsea as well. They're going to have massively tired legs in that squad, so that'll be interesting with Chelsea this season. But yeah, City were very, very good.
I didn't catch any European football this weekend, Ollie. Anything that caught your eye?
I did not catch any European football either, unfortunately.
We won't talk about it then.
But it's only been Liga and the Coppa Italia, which obviously the Coppa Italia is in the first round.
La Liga started as well, I think.
Oh yeah, La Liga was the opening weekend as well. But I don't really have any access to La Liga at the moment, and I don't even know who's doing it anymore.
Nobody does, mate. I mean, we could get into an industry rant about what's happened to because they've culled La Liga TV completely.
Yeah, which is
about this off pod.
Not surprising, but
they had it, so just because most of our listeners won't be as au fait with the sports media industry maybe as Ollie and I, but they used to run this 24-hour a day English language La Liga TV service. You'd rerun old games. Obviously during match day there was the big hype. They'd have people at stadiums. They'd have lots of great analysts. Obviously put a lot of money into it. Lovely studio, and they've culled it. I mean, they've culled it, and you only cull something like that because it doesn't make money. You know, if it makes money, you don't get rid of something like that.
Well, I have to say, I've never known nobody, even in the broadcasting world that I've spoken to, aside from the people that worked on La Liga TV that I knew, nobody I know has watched it. Like, I don't know anybody. This isn't to put down the channels or anything, because A, I'd love to work for them, and B, I've definitely subscribed to them in the past, but I don't know anybody with like a Premier Sport account either. So I don't know. But
even so, Ollie, and I agree with you, but even so, you'd think that something like La Liga, you know, it's such a huge league. Like, a lot of big companies, organizations, or institutions can possibly have something that's a loss-making element of their business, right? For brand awareness and all this kind of stuff. So that's the only reason, I guess, that you could make the case for La Liga TV staying. But I mean, look, it's a whole kind of messy situation.
PLP got rid of their kind of 24-hour Premier League news channel, didn't they? And that's the biggest league in the world. I mean, they went to more archive-type broadcasting for that, for World Service. So it's just not something that I think... Football chat. It's 24/7 at the best of times anyway. And then maybe we're seeing that there is actually a saturation point and 24/7 news channels around individual leagues. I mean... Did you see, I think it's a new show on Sky Sports News that came up after the full-time whistle on Saturday, the Fan Zone type thing. And it was like a football phone-in, but on Sky Sports News. And they had Fan Zone analysts. Fanalists, that was it, yeah. Which was like, okay, obviously like getting supporters on is good, but can't we just get... We've got 606 on 5 Live. We've got the phone-in on Talk Sport, like... I don't need to watch a phone in, really. I don't get it. I'm not sure.
You know, of those like YouTuber fanless people, one man stands head and shoulders above everyone else for me there, Ollie. You know,
the United guy.
No, he's good, but like Rory Jennings for me is a different. He is head and shoulders above anyone else because he actually says stuff that other people don't think about, or he frames stuff and he makes an argument in a way that is very, very clever, I believe. And he's unusual in the sense that he's obviously a proper Chelsea fan, used to go home and away, and yet he'll still do a 10-minute video about why Trent Alexander-Arnold actually should have stayed at Liverpool and not gone to Real Madrid. Like, he'll take that thing, he'll take a stance that I find quite interesting. Right, that's enough.
He's really nice. He's a really nice guy as well.
Oh, you met him as well?
He was at the Super Bowl. One of the Super Bowls I did. TalkSport sent him and Ali Oladipo to do stuff, and he was just really like nice to hang around with and work around with. And it was when Chelsea, I think, were going to be playing Palmeiras in Club World Cup, and he was like, "Do you know anything about them?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll tell you a bit about Palmeiras. Like, I've just come back from covering them, so yeah."
Tell you what, that Estaval. Okay, let's go on to all sport, Ollie. One thing I wanted to talk about, I think we did touch on this when it was announced. So the US Open's in a week's time, right? And in the week before the US Open, what the US Open have decided to do is to play the mixed doubles event in a standalone solitary week before the main Grand Slam event. This is new, it's unusual, it hasn't been done before, and of course there's a nice juicy $1 million in prize money. Why this is really clever, and of course the US are the kings of marketing, is that the mixed doubles tends just to be forgotten. No one watches it, no one's interested, if we're being brutally honest. It just gets tucked away in the Grand Slams. You don't see it, you don't know who's won. Often the crowds aren't full, etc., etc. But by playing it the week before, what you do is you allow the singles players to decide to participate in it, because they're going to be in New York anyway, right? Training and, adjusting to the time zone and prepping for the US Open. So you get the biggest singles players in the world playing in this standalone mixed doubles event. So that's why you've got Emma Raducanu and Carlos Alcaraz playing in it. And I just think it's a really interesting play from the US Open. Really, really smart, really, really clever. And I think you'll get eyeballs on it, and I think you'll get people inside the stadiums. And look, money always talks. You put $1 million US at the end of it, and suddenly the mixed doubles prize pot becomes a lot juicier.
I like it in terms of getting attention and eyeballs on it and giving it a bit more of gravitas. If I'm one of those top seeds, I'm not looking to go. Like, it only takes one ankle roll or something like that, and then your US Open.
Yeah, but that can happen in training, Ollie. And it's a warm-up. Do you think Carlos Alcaraz is going to give 100% in the mixed doubles? Obviously not.
But then do I want to watch a NAF warm-up tournament? Like, no, let's be honest. If
you're a big tennis fan, you might. It's a hard sell for someone like Ollie who doesn't watch tennis anyway.
It's a pre-season friendly of tennis. That's all it is.
People watch pre-season friendlies, mate. Didn't you watch the Visit Malta Trophy that we talked about last week?
No, because my schedule was too packed with all of the other pre-season tournaments. Like, I knew you had it covered, and that's why I didn't, lock in on it. But I just, if it's going to reduce the level of intensity and competition, then I don't agree with it being moved, because getting the stars on it is fine. But what about the mixed doubles pairings that literally work at mixed doubles throughout the year? That's their big chance to win a trophy in a tournament. And it's like, well, actually, Emma Raducanu and, well, not Andy Murray, obviously, but Jack Draper are gonna play together, and we're gonna have a British team in the US Open in the mixed doubles, and it's gonna be a good laugh. And like, some of that kind of Legends tennis series where they're actually joking around, somebody throws up the ball to serve and then does an underarm serve instead and all that. Like, that's funny, and that's very much relaxed, and they put it on at the Royal Albert Hall, and it's just a chilled out, like, afternoon of jokey sport. But there are people that train and dedicate their tennis career to something like trying to win a mixed doubles at a major tennis competition. And suddenly that's getting kind of stripped away from them, because Alcaraz and Raducanu at a canter might be able to do them when they're not even really trying and their attention is focused on elsewhere. So I actually think it's a bit of a disservice kind of to those duos that have basically put their whole career into that aspect of tennis.
That is the counter argument, Ollie. But I mean, ultimately the market decides, and not enough people were watching that.
Well, get KSI and someone to do it then. I mean, let's get Jake Paul with a
Mr.
boxing
Beast
glove and a tennis.
Like,
if
the first double fault, you're on an island with a tiger or something.
Yeah, the market decides. You can't go out of the red line, which is now the extreme boundaries of the tennis court. So you have to stay in it. Otherwise, Mr.
There's
Beast
lava
won't
in the
give you
tram
$1 million.
lines or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what the market decides. But also, sport and sporting integrity should triumph at the end of the day. Because if you're not interested in the sport for the sake of the actual sport, and you just like seeing famous faces, sit and scroll on Instagram. in my opinion. Like, that's why I sometimes get infuriated with the Olympics or when Wimbledon comes around, because people that don't watch any sport except for maybe that week of the Olympics, 2 weeks of the Olympics once every 4 years, or that 1 week of Wimbledon, start spouting off opinions about the overall aspects in sport and finances and TV deals and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, you don't pay any attention to any of this stuff anyway, 90% of the time. So if you're just there for some fan service, for some big names, like, that's not a sports fan. That's a celebrity fan.
Right, 15 minutes left, Ollie. Do you want to talk golf? Do you want to talk boxing and Atoma? Do you want to talk Ronnie O'Sullivan being a couple of months away from being 50 years old and still hitting a 147, the oldest player to do so?
It's not the most impressive oldest athlete to do something, without a doubt. Ronnie O'Sullivan. Like,
I didn't say that.
No, but we when you brought this up of it's interesting, Ronnie O'Sullivan, oldest player to make a 147, I was like, it's not that interesting, because the physical attributes for playing snooker, it's mental and control and technique. But Tom Brady throwing multiple touchdowns in a game, even in the last year when he didn't win the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, is more impressive, because there is a greater physical aspect of a mid-40-year-old doing that than there is of Ronnie O'Sullivan hitting a 147. Like, it's a great achievement, but Rocket Ronnie, it's like, snooker's one of those sports that,
50?
like, yeah, but you're not really going to lose it in snooker, are you? Until you get to 60 and you can't lean over the table.
I don't know, man. I still think there's a physical element to it. Because otherwise, Ollie, you'd get a chess player at 60 or 70, and you don't. Like, chess players max out in their like mid to late 30s. That's when the peak is. So there is still you are mentally sharper when you're younger, unfortunately. I wish it wasn't the case, but you just are. Just on the O'Sullivan in Saudi thing, I mean, you know, the macro takeaway is Saudi in sport, man. I mean, when they're hoovering up snooker, and having covered the Esports World Cup this summer, I cannot tell you how good the production is. Like, it's so sharp. It's so impressive. I mean, they just love sport. I mean, they just love sport, Saudi. Like, it's all ending up in Saudi, essentially. Right, golf and Atoma. So that was in Saudi as well, wasn't it, the boxing?
Yeah, well, I was about to say the Atoma fight was in Saudi Arabia. Commonwealth title, but not being fought in area of the Commonwealth, unless we are now calling Saudi is the new Commonwealth, as they go and kind of stick their flag into every sport that they've got. The Atoma fight was ridiculous, like Dillian White just taken apart inside 2 minutes. I mean, and maybe this is what we wanted from a young British fighter in terms of Anthony Joshua. Of course, had an incredible career and still is fighting, but you know, his name's obviously been linked to people like Jake Paul now, which shows you where I think Joshua is in terms of his credentials of heavyweight fighting. You know, that Klitschko fight at Wembley for Joshua is still one of the best sporting nights I've had. Like, it was just a great evening of boxing and drama that unfolded. But Itoma looks like faster than Joshua, locked in. Like, that speed and agility at that weight is impressive. As well. Yeah, and young. There's a lot to come. 13 wins, 11 by knockout is a very strong resume. And then you fight someone like Dillian White, who's been around, obviously, and has had his moment in the sun for sure, but to manhandle him like that's a statement, a big statement.
119 seconds. I mean, they're barely out, barely in the ring.
Yeah. And it's kind of what you want and don't want in boxing. Like, a first round knockout on a main fight feels always a bit like, oh, I paid all this money to see this fight and I got 2 minutes of action. But also, you're baying for blood when the fists start flying like that, and you get so wrapped up in it that you're like, go on, get him. And yeah, it was really impressive. I mean, obviously it's clear it's one to keep an eye on for the future and everything like that, but the rise is rapid and impressive from this young man.
What next for him?
That, I don't know.
Usyk too early, obviously.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, we're getting to this point now where the line in boxing is so blurred between, like, who are the actual step-up fights? Who are those names that... A bit like Arsenal and United. You know, they peaked at the right time for Premier League football, and suddenly, you know, they're always going to be in the lexicon of, like, great sides, even when they're having bad seasons, and that rivalry will still probably always be considered, you know, Arsenal and United as a rivalry. There are fighters that are just going to be peaking in boxing careers at this right time when the attention has come back in the last 10, 15 years or so on heavyweight, because there was a bit of a flop between kind of Lennox Lewis and then what the Klitschko brothers did basically for the heavyweight division. It was a bit of a downturn, and it's back, and obviously it's been big with Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, etc. over the last few years. So there's a lot of names probably still lingering around that you go, is he a great fighter still, or is he just a name? And then you throw in the kind of YouTube boxing as well. So I'm not exactly sure where he goes, but
Anthony Joshua.
But would you bother with Joshua? Is Joshua?
You mean he's too good already for Joshua?
Well, that's the thing. And is Joshua seen as like a step up? Or is Joshua now down there with the Dillian Whites, and something needs to be taken up above that? I mean, better men who know boxing better than me would be able to tell you that, and we might be able to get Andy Clark maybe for a little special of what happens with this young man. But I as to where he goes, I don't know. But if I was him, I would avoid anybody who's on the way down right now, and anybody that is involved in around the YouTube side of stuff, because you got to have credential fights, and this was a big credential fight.
Last few minutes, Ollie. You want to talk golf?
Poor Bob McIntyre had like a 2-shot lead, 3-shot lead, I think it was, over Scotty Scheffler going into the last day of the BMW this weekend. It's the race for the top 30. So the top 30 golfers in the overall PGA standings after this weekend go into the Tour Championship that's next weekend at East Lake, just outside Atlanta. And Bob McIntyre, he's going to be at East Lake. That's not a problem at all. That's more for kind of further down the ranks. There was this really interesting moment where kind of Ricky Fowler is in 33rd in the standings. He has a couple of good holes, moves up to 28th in the standings, or then drops back down again, and he ended up missing the cut. But yeah, McIntyre had this advantage over Scheffler going into the final day, played lights out for Friday, Saturday, tee to green, just up there with the best in the world in terms of form at that point. And it all went kaput. And I think he ended up shooting 3 over on the final day. Scheffler kind of comes through past him, and even he was making some mistakes, and McIntyre just couldn't capitalise at all. And I think the trouble is for a lot of these golfers is you get ahead of Scotty Scheffler, and it becomes, oh God, I know he's not going to mess up, so I need to play perfect golf. And you add a bit of extra pressure on your shoulders anyway. I mean, McIntyre said yesterday, Scotty's going to do what Scotty's going to do. I can't control that. And the reporter asked him, well, what would you have changed about your round today? What would you have liked to have done? And he just went, I can't think of that right now. I just want to go and break every single club in my bag.
Yeah, I want to smash my clubs. That was his direct quote.
Which is that's so relatable as somebody that tries to play that sport. But so tough in the end. And it's just 3 over on the final Sunday of a tournament isn't going to cut the mustard if you've got Scotty Scheffler just behind you. But overall, a fantastic weekend looking ahead for Team Europe and the Ryder Cup, which is obviously building up to what is potentially going to be, Dave, one of the best weekends of sport of all time, because we have the NFL...
Remind me, Ollie, I've asked you this 5 times. October.
September.
Last
weekend in September. You've got NFL in Dublin to kick the morning off. Nice.
And you'll be
start.
there?
I won't be there for that, unfortunately.
Okay.
I could be there, but there's other things that, that's not going to happen. You've got a great slate of NFL games that weekend, and you've got the Ryder Cup culminating on the Sunday night as well. It's just sit down. I think it's the 26th, 27th, 28th that weekend in September. Just sit down for 3 days and enjoy the Premier League, all the US side of sports, everything. It'll be unbelievable. But you look at, Ludvig Åberg, Swedish golfer, young, absolute stud, has had a ropey year this year. He finishes joint 7th with 7 under. Tommy Fleetwood can't get it done again, but you know what he did? Still finished in the top 4. Great for Team Europe. Victor Hovland, who's been on the periphery this year, he finishes joint 7th with Ludwig and Ricky Fowler. Rory McIlroy had a decent return after missing the previous week. Even Matt Fitzpatrick up in there in the top 20. Shane Lowry lurking around the top 20. It was just a weekend where a lot of the big names for Team Europe started to turn the screw a little bit in this end of season run-in to what is in about a month's time going to be the thing that I think a lot of them, aside from those that are in contention next weekend, that after the majors, it's about the Ryder Cup this year, especially going to Bethpage Black and everything that's going to bring. Although I am skeptical of whether the New York intense atmosphere has been priced out with the $750 tickets. Are we going to see like the everyday New Yorker going there and like abusing Rory? Probably not. Are we going to see the New York banker going there and enjoying the free champagne and the corporate? Yeah, probably that. But,